always comes down to the hunter's helper to clean up after these sorts of messes. Tonight,
Geppetto
joins the hunt.
Ahoy and welcome back to their Bonfire Chat. I've got Lumber and we've got Landy in the new satellite office.
We finally gave
the door
him a
outside
paycheck.
right there.
That's the door to outside. He's finally let inside.
It's one room and then outside. That's
Yes.
it.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
How you guys doing today?
Oh, doing
Good.
well.
Are you
Done working?
ready to talk about the most recent Souls-like that we've all enjoyed and played in Lies of P?
Yeah. Yep. I think it should be a fun conversation.
Yeah, so this game, I guess, at first got revealed. I remember we all kind of reacted to it on a podcast like 2 years ago, and I think we were all kind of clowning on it because the premise is very silly. It's like, what if?
Like the rest of the internet. Like,
Oh yeah, of course. It's like, what if Pinocchio had a great sword? You're like, oh, I mean, of course, why not?
Yeah, and like a penchant for dodge rolling. He
Yes,
loves
of
the
course.
dodge roll.
Pinocchio, well known for dodge rolling. But yeah, I remember laughing at this game for like 2 years leading up to its release, and then like I got pretty close, and I was like, that was pretty fun. I kind of want to play that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a pretty looking game, you know.
Yeah, and I think
It's almost next gen.
And obviously we'll get into like all of our thoughts, but overall, I really did enjoy my time with it. We've all beaten the game. We're all going to talk, fair game, spoilers, end game, whatever. But overall, what's your top level thought without getting the details? What we feel on Lies of P? I was a fan. I liked it a lot.
I'm a fan. It's right there. It's almost what it needs to be. I have I have a list of bullet points of things I did and didn't like, and the didn't like is a little bit longer, but it's not because I didn't like the game overall.
I think it does stuff so well, but what it does wrong, it's like really annoying what it does wrong.
Yeah. So that's why I say right there, and like next game, and we can talk about like what the future of this will be, but like they're close. Sorry, that wasn't like that was too much for a top level.
It's good.
Yeah.
Andrew, I took it you feel the similar way.
I agree. Yeah, 8.54 out of 10 on the scale.
Of course.
2 decimal points. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, that's accurate. That's we've become connoisseurs of the Souls.
Can I see the rubric?
No, that's a funny.
I'll send it to you after. It's down in the chat.
That's a funny topic. So we've all played pretty much all the Souls games. I think y'all are just missing Dark Souls 2. But Andrew, you played Sekiro?
Yeah.
You played Sekiro, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've played all of them. Y'all played everything but Dark Souls 2. We know for the most part what these games feel like as far as the FromSoft games. And I gotta ask, if this game was a FromSoft game, exact same game, slap the logo on it, do you think people would be giving it a little bit more like, oh, that's just their artistic vision, all these little problems with it?
Man, it's hard because the issues I have with it are because I've compared it to
previous FromSoft games.
And they wouldn't be there if it was a FromSoft game. So that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess let's kind of get into it. We'll talk about things we liked, and we'll start weaving into things we don't like as we're going.
Yeah.
So I guess top level, it's a third-person action adventure. It's a Souls game, so lots of combat, semi-linear level design. Looping back in on itself, getting shortcuts,
difficult
checkpoints,
enemies and combat.
Difficult
stamina
enemies,
management.
dodge roll, block,
Right.
swing.
Right.
If you played a Souls game, this game is as close to it is like mimicking a Souls game as close as it can. It is trying its best to just be a Souls game, even down to the menus.
It gets closer to a FromSoft Souls game than almost any other game that has tried.
Yeah.
I will say,
Yep.
especially for a first outing for a studio, that's in this genre and
Yeah.
everything. Like they have a couple other smaller stuff that they've done, but pretty.
And maybe that's why some of the issues are a little jarring. Because you can.
Because it's like vision, like from the jump, you're like, wow, this mimics so well, and then you start to feel it a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, well, I see the cracks.
The cracks in the armor a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I guess let's start with like the weapon system. I think the weapon system is one thing that this game does do to try to differentiate itself from a Souls game.
One of its biggest strengths, I would say.
One of its biggest strengths is, so basically you have your regular weapons and your special weapons, boss weapons. Same thing as a Souls game. But in this game, all your regular weapons you can break in half and mix and match with different abilities and skills.
Yeah. Blade and handle.
Blade and handle, yeah.
I think it was really smartly done. Yeah.
A really cool idea. I didn't play around with it as much as I wanted to because I had a weapon and I started playing with it, and then I got like a boss weapon I wanted. But I'm curious, what were y'all's thoughts on this, and did y'all have a favorite combination you used throughout? And why did you feel like combination was good?
Yeah. You want to go first, Andy?
Sure, yeah. So the way that it's set up, the scaling of the weapon is based on the handle. And so essentially when you're doing your build, you're building around the handle that you like. At the end of the day, and they have kind of a similar mechanic that some Souls games have. Like in Dark Souls 3, it was the gems, right? You could put a fire gem on, a hollow gem on. They have the same thing with the cranks. And the crazy part is that they let you put that on the boss weapons, which if you didn't know that, put a crank on there because that's just free damage.
Right.
But I liked it. I had an advanced build character, so I'm going after the crank baby. I was going after elemental damage, and there's several options for the blade of those weapons. And the one that I ended up using, I had some synergy with the handle because I used a blade that did more damage and more elemental buildup the more attacks in a row that you had.
Yeah.
And then I changed it to a handle that was much faster than the base handle of the weapon. So
so the handles also controlled the weapon like motion too, right?
Moveset, yeah. Everything pretty much besides like some slight differences, it would change depending on if the weapon was blunt or sharp, it would change slightly. And then also the fatal strikes, viscerals, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Those were weapon blade specific. So
did it affect the reach too? I guess if you had like a tiny blade or whether a long blade, I guess it would change the reach.
Yeah, it would change. Yeah, that would change it too. So that was kind of the synergy that I found there, was taking a weapon that is good on its own, but then kind of exploiting the benefits of it by putting it on a handle that made it attack faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at kind of in the same boat with the advance or like the elemental / magic, whatever you want to call it in this game. I kind of, for most of the game, I leaned a little bit towards advance, but I also put a lot of points into technique, and that'd be like your dexterity stat. Technique. But yeah, I liked the electric coil head. You get that pretty early on, and I put it on a weapon that does like rapier pokes.
Yep.
And because it for a similar reason that what you just described, like it made it attack a lot faster than what other handles were giving me. It was smartly done, although a little bit finicky at first, because the handle gives you the scaling and the move set. The blade gives you the damage and if you're going to have an advanced build, you need to have a blade that is doing elemental stuff. Otherwise, you cannot take advantage of the scaling from advanced. So, it was a little bit of a slight learning curve to figure out.
Did it explain that to you very well?
No, it didn't. You had to see visually what numbers were going up when you would combine stuff. And so you have to make sure you get a handle that has the scaling, or that you at least put a crank on to get that scaling. I know this probably sounds totally foreign to people just listening to us, but you could really manipulate.
My audience is very familiar with cranking it. So.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's true. All the Playdate videos. But yeah, I would jump around. I probably spent my resources not wisely testing out different weapons, and I got stuck on bosses a couple of times.
You did get a lot of resources though. They let you play around.
By the end, you did, yeah. And at the point I was at when I got stuck, I didn't have enough resources.
You had a lot of middling weapons.
Right. Yeah. I put a bunch into one, and then I was like, "This isn't working. Let me try something else." But similar to you, Zach, I also found a boss weapon late game that I really liked, and it was pure technique. And I respect and put everything into technique. I made it scale with the max amount it could with that stat, and that's what I went with. I really liked the moveset for what I stuck with. But yeah, it was cool to kind of jump around, and it gave you that freedom. I thought it was funny the impromptu patch they put in the game to let you get your respecking done earlier than what it gives.
That was funny because
that was funny.
I got to the point where I could respec naturally, and then they patched in respec wherever you want, and then I played the next day, and I was like, it kind of threw me off.
I was almost to the point where you could respec naturally, so I respec once before, like with the patch thing they added. Yeah. Then I got to the one you would have found. I was like, oh, did that happen to you, Andrew? Do you know what we're talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
They patched the game to where there's this golden tree thing that you can get resources from. I'm saying that for the audience, but they added the ability to respec from that. But then if you had not gotten to that statue that goddess statue that lets you respec, I guess it wasn't available to you before the patch, but they put that in, I guess, to make it a little bit easier.
Respec at any point once you have the tree.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess,
just
like a little earlier.
Same amount of resources. It is a bit earlier.
Yeah. What state is it in now? Can you respec when you get to the tree?
Just go to the tree and respec.
Yes. Yep. That is now the earliest time where you can. So
all right, mind blown. Okay, learn something new every day.
Well, you would. I didn't even. I wouldn't have realized a patch was coming out with those kind of changes if Zach hadn't told me, because I probably would have saw a download and been like, oh, just bugs and stuff. Yeah. But they made significant changes actually in a patch, so which was good. It helped them with that. I know we're kind of squirreling here, but that was a good thing that they did.
Back to the weapons a little bit. I just used, like I said, I didn't experiment as much as I wanted to. I tried like a couple goofy builds. I didn't like min-max anything, but I ended up just like, I devolved into my worst self in these games. I was like, I'm gonna use something different this time. And it's like big weapon. So then I just used the booster glaive, which is like it was like a butcher knife with like an engine on it. I don't know what that was.
It didn't make any sense. That weapon, dude.
But like,
I like how they combined like, brutal like medieval weapon looking things with like, steampunk technology looking stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yes, I used the booster glaive. It was just like R2 spamming, trying to stagger people the whole game. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna try one of these boss weapons out. And I got the boss weapon for beating the mid boss, the king puppet. It's like the scythe with like the whip on it, and it like whips around twice.
The Puppet Ripper.
Yeah, the Puppet Ripper. Excuse me, the Puppet Ripper. And then I just used the Puppet Ripper the rest of the game. I stopped experimenting with any other weapons. I just was ripping puppets the whole time.
How would you like? Just go head first into it.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it's the best thing to do. Yeah.
What was the boss weapon that you ended up using? Bernie, you said you used a boss weapon.
Yeah, it's called the Two Dragon Sword. It was like a katana. You get it from what's the thing called? It has a goofy, very literal name.
It's the green monster.
Green puppet monster. It was like very descriptive.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
What it was.
And why did that thing give you a katana?
I don't know. I have no idea. But I think there was probably some lore behind it, but like whatever. I really liked it because it had a pretty high skill ceiling. It changed up the moveset compared to any other weapon. It wasn't just like swing. Like you could be a little bit more thoughtful, because it gave you some directionality with when you were swinging, and it had a really cool like counter option if you did a charged R2, and if you got hit while you were doing that, you're doing this whirl with it, and then if you got hit, it would like do a perfect guard.
There's a whole mechanic built into the R2 that doesn't exist on any other weapon. Just ridiculous.
Which I discovered it by accident, because I didn't think that's how I wasn't expecting it to do that. And then from there, I probably got it off on my own maybe once. Like, it was just not something I thought to do for guarding, but it was really satisfying when it happened. And I liked we haven't talked about like special moves. That was also, so the blade and the handle of a weapon each have their own like meter consuming move.
Oh yeah,
move. There's like a secondary like a consumable like an FP meter. And then each end of the weapon has
Fable.
It's called Fable. And for the boss weapons, they just have two, and you can't change them. For the split weapons, you could mix and match those abilities. I really liked the abilities on that Two Dragons sword. It was had a katana sweep, and it like sent out a beam. It was pretty cool. I like doing that one. It would do lots of stagger damage. So
as much as I liked the Puppet Ripper, its triangle attack, its Fable attack was kind of boring. You just like smack the crap out of them with it.
A lot of them were like that. But they could have been a little more creative on some of those Fable attacks. Make them like really strategic. Like, oh man, if you're able to get this off, like it'll really stagger them, or open them up. But if it's just like big swing, like okay.
Mine actually was a little strategic. So I was telling you that the more hits that you had, the better this weapon was. This is
Which weapon is this?
Electric chainsaw.
Yeah.
Was it the pizza cutter? Was it the pizza cutter on the stick?
The pizza cutter. Yeah.
Okay.
So and mine looked like a pizza cutter. I'll give you a picture. You can splash it up at this point. Mine looked like a pizza cutter because of the handle I put on it was even more like a pizza cutter.
Nice.
So it would stack up to 4 times. It would spin faster every time that you hit, and it would do more electric and more damage. And the Fable art, the triangle, gained an extra hit for each one that you did. So it also charged up how powerful the Fable art would be. So sometimes I'd press triangle, and he would slash once and be like, I'm done. And I'm like, oh no, you weren't supposed to do that, because he's supposed to slash like 4 times, and the last one can stagger them into fatal strike mode and like just completely destroy them. It always procced electric, by the way, if you hit it, because nobody could resist that much electric damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
was a cool status effect.
That one was creative and made up for the fact that my handles was stupid. You just pressed it and he retreated back a little bit. Like he hit him once and just retreated.
Yeah, as far as the status, I was gonna say status effects, I always used electric. Pretty much the whole game.
Yeah. I think it was the most beneficial.
There was fire, which I'm guessing was it just constant damage?
I think it was just damage over time. Yeah.
And then what was the corrosion one? What did corrosion do?
Same thing, DOT. And I don't know if fire or poison were different. Like I don't know if you guys remember this, but you would be poisoned in Souls game, like Dark Souls, depending on how big your meter was, you'd be poisoned for longer, right?
Sure.
So I couldn't tell when I was using fire or acid if like the same effect was happening, like the DOT would last longer or shorter depending on their resistance. But
I think I remember one difference.
Imagine that might be something that existed in it, but the other two statuses were just not as good as electric.
The one thing I will say about
more damage.
Well, electric, it made the enemies take more stagger damage. So
stagger
the faster you can stagger them, like that was always going to be good. Overheat or burn or whatever, I think literally just damage over time. The decay or acid, poison, whatever, I'm pretty sure that one, because I remember getting poisoned, it makes your not only your health go down, but your weapon durability. So I guess if you're fighting like like a human enemy with a regular weapon or whatever, a breakable
pizza
weapon,
cutter of their own.
A pizza cutter of their own. But I guess it would really help you there if you could break their weapon sooner.
You mentioned
I
overheat.
actually didn't think about that, but that might be a mechanic too, is breaking their weapons.
Right.
So.
Yep. That was a cool thing that they added. I think that we'll get into some of those. Yeah.
You mentioned overheat.
It increases their damage once you do it. Like there's a lot of
significantly. Yeah.
Did y'all notice that when you got overheat status on yourself, if you rolled, it would take away the overheat away? Like
I didn't. That's funny.
If you stopped, dropped, and rolled, it would take your overheat away.
It would do like a chunk of it. Like it's going down at a constant, and it would do like a chunk every time you roll.
Those are little details that are really smart.
Yeah. It's pretty goofy, but this game is pretty goofy. So before we get off the weapons, because I don't want to forget about it, which Legion arm did y'all use? Because the way it worked was you can't two-hand weapons in this game. You have your right hand is a weapon, and your left hand is like your puppet arm, which is like a lot clearly a nod to like Sekiro. But your left arm is like your kind of like a utility option, so you can use it. Like the one I used, for example, was it was just a gun. I just shot people with it. And it's like it gave me a ranged option that I felt like I needed in the early game.
Right.
I just stuck with
like
that.
A magic option almost.
Basically like a magic option, yeah. Then you had like a meter, it would like run out details. But which Legion arm did y'all use? Yeah.
So the one I used for most of the game was the the Flamberge.
Yeah.
It does the flamethrower stuff. It's pretty standard. Even the upgrades just kind of blow fire farther or make fire bigger. It didn't really do anything crazy.
The
but
things I would want from a flamethrower,
Yeah, and I liked just the little bit of damage over time you could put on enemies and the range, all that stuff. And I was doing the advanced build, and the Legion arms. I don't know if you mentioned this. They do scale with your stats as well, which I thought was kind of cool. And just a side note, I also thought it was pretty interesting that throwable items also scaled with your stats. I thought that was pretty cool. So those were like pseudo spells, I guess. If they were like elemental, it's like, oh, that's a spell, just an electric pot.
What was the pot for the zombies? Like a pot of zombie juice corrosion.
Yeah, it was like battery acid, basically.
I think that Dark Souls 3 had that. That if you throw like an electric urn, it scales with faith and stuff. But it was only specific stuff like that. Yeah, it wasn't like the deck scaling with sharp stuff or whatever. But I could be wrong.
But yeah, I used the flambeurs for most of the game, and then when I pivoted into using my other weapon that was just technique, you started using that gun thing that you mentioned. Falconize, I think it was called.
Yeah, Falconize.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that thing. Just like if you just use a regular attack, it would like charge real slow and then shoot. Yeah. But if you unlocked the like shoot while dodging, it was faster to like initiate a dodge and shoot out of the dodge.
Yeah, I could never get the timing right on that, but I didn't. It was so in game for me that I didn't get enough practice with it. But yeah. And
then the other one is like shoot shortly after shooting. So I would stand there, I dodge, and then shoot them twice, and then
like an emergency shot or whatever it called it. Yeah, that was
so it would like what it does is it's like initial impact, basically a sticky grenade, and then it blows up on them. And I was going straight into technique scaling. I was doing some big damage with that. I liked it a lot. And,
it has an A scaling with technique. It's the only one. That thing was ridiculous.
Yeah. Which one did you use, Andrew?
I was using Pandemonium, which is the acid arm.
I used it for a little bit. I thought that was
acid
arms.
Cool.
Yeah. It was cool, and it got better as time goes on. Like the upgrades were actually really good. The most important upgrade was you got to change it from like just a spread like straight in front of you to like a line straight in front of you.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Amazingly good. The next upgrade was if you charged it for a while, the range went up. And so you throw it farther, and then the third upgrade was also awesome because it would proc stagger sometimes, which is that the acid would explode at the end of it being there. So the strat was, for me, stagger an enemy, throw acid, do the fatal attack, they lay down, maybe they, get angry right after getting fatal strike, but the whole time they're just standing in acid, accruing acid.
Nice.
And a lot of times, since I was using electric, I would have procced electric, so the electric would synergize with the acid and just make this by the end of it, you look down and you're like, oh, I've done 6,000 damage.
Because it just continues to build up since you're constantly doing. That's good.
Yeah, because not only are they taking tick damage from standing in the acid, then they start taking tick damage over time once they get burned by the acid. It was great. It was great for the King of Puppets first phase.
Yeah.
Because when you got down to like half health, he would stand there for a long time. I would have to throw 2 sets of acid because he was standing there for so long. Yeah. Yes, because I'd be like, oh, there's still more time. Throw some more on him.
Right. Yeah. Nice.
You talked about the King of Puppets. You want to just kind of go into the bosses? Kind of just talk about some of the.
Yeah. I think there was like your standard fare of bosses, and then there was like very significant story moment bosses that they definitely differentiated with a mechanic or element of the game I did not like, but so I'm just bad.
So we'll go through. So basically, there's a lot of this game had a lot of hard enemies, and I thought
mini bosses like Sekiro. I feel like that was a good homage there.
Some of those I thought were like weirdly hard. Like it was like I'd be rolling through an area untouched, and then there's like this enemy that's like really tough. It takes like 30 hits to kill, and it's like 2-shotting me. But then there was actual proper boss health bar bosses, and some of them there was the one the clown, what's it called, the mad puppet. You can just like run around them. But then there was the actual like cutscene. You're gonna fight this thing, boss door bosses.
There's no getting past it or around it. You gotta do it.
And all of those you were allowed to bring in like your.
You
duplicate.
Ran past the clown puppet. You didn't fight him.
Oh, I killed him. But I did run past him to get the checkpoint.
Oh,
yes.
Same. Yeah, absolutely. I did that too.
Yeah, I died to him twice, and I'm like, I'm not gonna keep running this. I'm gonna get my checkpoint, and then I'll go back and fight him.
It didn't fog wall me, so I was like, I'm going to pass you, boy. And then I wasn't necessarily expecting to get a checkpoint right after, but I was like, I'll come back to you, bro. I'll come back.
It was right there, though. It was like literally right there.
Yeah.
Fair enough point. In hindsight, that would have saved me some amount of time.
Yeah. Well, because then you could approach him from the back, and there's not all those enemies that you have to fight to get to him. So,
yeah.
I liked watching them ball of fire roll into the one guy.
Yeah.
That was just not the
That's funny.
thing, Joe.
That's funny.
He was just doing his job. He was just burning stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It wouldn't kill him, by the way, which I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. This giant ball crashes into him, and it's just like, oh, that did half health. I'm like,
I mean, I'd always kill that guy first before I made the ball roll down, so I didn't even know how much damage it would do. That's funny.
I tested it once because I was like, oh, could I just like kill this guy with the ball? Like, that'll be hilarious. And then he didn't die. I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever.
He was born in the fire. He was literally using a flamethrower.
Yeah.
True.
So all the big story bosses, I started off being pretty frustrated with these because the very first boss was the carnival puppet. What's he called? The carnival puppet.
The parade master.
Parade master. So when I started the parade master, I'm like, okay, big hunkering, lunkering boss. I see his attacks, but I didn't like understand the dodge windows yet. I was still like, my timing is really bad, and I was just getting smacked around. He took me like a few tries because I wasn't clicking with the movement of the game, and that was one of my bigger sticking points for like the first half of the game. I felt like I was really at a disadvantage trying to dodge. I didn't like understand the dodge windows very well. I felt a little clunky.
There's no dodge rolling to start the game either, which makes a huge difference if you're used to Souls games having a dodge.
I guess there's only dodge rolling if you're not locked on until you got that ability that let you dodge like while locked on. Because you could dodge roll, I think, if you were just like running.
Even so, I didn't feel like I was getting distance.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting distance, and I wasn't getting like the iframes I was expecting, and that really messed me up for a while. Trying to get used to that. But overall, I thought all of the main bosses were at least cool. They were all pretty cool, except for the big trash green monster. That was just a weird boss. In the
big trash green, the
green puppet, green puppet monster. Is that what he's called?
The green
puppet
monster.
eating monster. That's what
he was just a green pile of trash that and then he takes over like an actual puppet, and then he was like, But I think something you were alluding to here, Brendan. A lot of these story, like the big time bosses, incorporated 2 health bars.
Go ahead. Sorry.
In ways that like
even not story bosses.
In ways that were like less forgiving than I would expect. Like it wasn't like a fake half bar twice. It was 2 boss bars, and sometimes that was really frustrating with some of those bosses.
I think maybe it's like I have my criticisms about it, and then it's like, okay, I also had expectations for how the game should be structured, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe I shouldn't, because I'm a glutton for punishment because I play all these games except for Dark Souls 2, like we said. But I guess if we look at the FromSoft games that this game is clearly inspired by, the full health bar in 2 phases for bosses is rare.
Yeah. From
what I can remember in FromSoft games, most of the time you get it down to half, get it down to 60%, whatever, and it changes form, changes moveset, but it's not as much health to deal with still. When you have to deal with a totally changing moveset and another health bar, and then you get to a boss like what we'll probably talk about, the Archbishop, the Fallen Archbishop. I got stuck at that boss for 2 days probably, and it was like 24 tries, or more, and it was rough for me. And you know, these games always tend to have like, this was that boss for me, this was that boss for me, and that was the one. And like it felt a little bit brutally unfair because I didn't have the healing to keep up with that much of an endurance test. So it's like, okay, so I just can't get touched. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know we were just doing a perfect run. Like, so it took a lot. It took some grinding.
For y'all to picture the Archbishop, it's not a man. It's a big blue blob monster. What was he?
Big tentacle monster.
Tentacle monster with the nasty mouth thing that he like.
You wish it was like this. It was like this.
Bro. But you're right. It was a sideways mouth, the much more scary option.
It was like this. It was like. It was horrible.
And his second phase was like, what if I turned around and my mouth was in my ass, and then then my body was up front.
And then I get another tentacle man come out with a spear.
So that part of the boss, that was definitely the harder part of the boss for sure. When I beat that boss, I still had my little Spectre buddy, and I always feel like this much bad about it when the Spectre's taking the hits and I'm just smacking his ass. That's how I beat it. I ran to the back, and I was just smacking the ass of the mouth, while Archbishop whatever is just beating the ever-living crap out of my Spectre buddy. That's how I ended up beating him, was just literally doing that.
I guess we haven't spoken about that mechanic in much detail. For almost all the bosses in the game, especially like, not just talking like the Mad Clown Puppet, you couldn't summon for that because it wasn't like a real enclosed boss. But you could summon
all the boss door bosses,
a little helper.
I think.
All the boss door bosses, save a couple. You could summon for a little specter buddy that was like a shadow of you, basically, whatever. With a cool weapon.
Were they always using the boss weapon for that boss?
I'm not confident enough to say every time, but it looked like that was kind of what was happening, because you would kill the boss, and then I realized that pattern after the fact, that you'd be able to go get that weapon afterwards. So I think it was something like that, which is
like
pretty cool.
Long-haired spirit version of Pinocchio that you'd fight alongside.
Right, and for the most part, that thing was pretty fragile. I think the patch we mentioned earlier, I think they did beef up the Spectre a little bit.
Yeah.
But early game, like even with that Archbishop fight, I also, the time I beat it, it was when I had my Spectre still alive, but it felt pretty fragile. Like, it was like, you better take advantage of his aggro draw as long as you can, because it felt like he would die pretty quickly. But it was an interesting thing that they introduced, just like, I guess akin to like, NPC special summons in a FromSoft game. This is just literally the same thing. There's like this little basin in front of the door that you like crack a thing into, and then you get to bring them in.
Yeah.
But
so overall, the main bosses were kind of split up into a couple. It was like humanoid boss, and then there was monster boss, and then there was just like big lunkering puppet boss. There was there's one of the factory. It's like the fire, whatever. He's like spit fire.
I can't remember what that thing's called. It was like, it looked like
the King's Flame.
Oh yeah,
Fuecoco.
It's Fuecoco. Yeah.
The well-known Pokemon Scarlet and Violet starter.
Yeah. And then there was like the police puppet man. And a lot of those
Murphy,
were all cool.
Bro?
What?
My boy Murphy.
Oh, Murphy. Yeah. Those were all
were
cool. I don't remember the bosses. I remember the most were the ones I fought the most. So the big boss that sticks out for me, the one that I had the most trouble with, was the King of Puppets, which is like, it was like the big, like, I would say it's like the big mid game like twist story moment.
And even maybe it's in hindsight, especially, it's probably the most story significant boss.
Yeah, it probably
So.
So basically, it's big. It's a big wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man for arms.
Very good. You nailed it. Bro.
Nailed it in one. And then he had like a crown. He was just this big puppet, and he's like talking to you. And then when you get to the whole boss bar, I was like, I did it, I win. And then your homie Romeo, who's also a puppet.
You find out after the fact that it's a homie of your main character.
Yeah, he like comes out. Yeah, exactly. And then you just
it was
fight
like Iron Man and the Hulkbuster. He just like, all right, let me get out.
Yeah.
And then you fight this just hyper aggressive humanoid guy who he was pretty tough. He was the hardest one for me to beat. For sure.
Yeah, I spent the whole day on him.
Yeah.
The whole day, for sure.
I think so. Andrew, I didn't get a clear thing from you. How was the Archbishop for you? Because I may have had an opposite experience to you guys. If you guys found the Archbishop like okay, and then the King of Puppets was really hard.
Was not just okay. The Archbishop was fine for sure. The Archbishop was not as bad if you went to his mouth side.
That's what I always did. Yeah.
So you didn't have to learn a whole new moveset, but you did have to learn the timings completely changed, and so that was probably the beginning of what I would call second phase fatigue that I had in this game, which is basically every significant boss in the game has a whole entire another health.
You just knew it was coming, and it's like
you knew it was coming.
Yeah. In FromSoft games,
could not be, even if the first boss was hard, you're just dreading it. Like with the green monster, puppet eating monster, he was tough at the beginning, and then you kill him, you're like, oh, okay, cool, and it's like, nope, not done yet. Run it back. Let's go. Suffer.
They need to understand how the gamer mind works. They see bar, they want it to go 0. Mm-hmm. So when you do that, you achieve that goal, and then you're just like, nope. It's back again. It's like this is kind of not satisfying. So if they had done the split health bar thing, it's maybe less to deal with, but there's that satisfaction you get. You still can add in the flavor of changing a moveset of a boss and making the player think on their feet. That's good. I just found it very not satisfying when there was a second health bar, and I was like, God,
the main
like,
thing,
this again.
The main thing I didn't like, a lot of the second phases, I thought a lot of the second phases were like just way too aggressive. I want to talk about, I was telling Brendan, Andrew, I want to talk about the last 3 bosses. Before we do the last 3 bosses, I want to talk about the Gank bosses. So let's talk about the Gank bosses real quick.
Yeah. So we're talking about the humanoid,
the
Gank
brother,
boss?
the black rabbit
Brotherhood. Yeah. Well, I think, Zach, you and I talked about this before, and Andy, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Every From Software-like game, every Souls-like, wants to have an Ornstein smile, and none of them do it right. Even FromSoft can't really do it right again, and because parts of Ornstein smile are kind of ridiculous. Like, it's kind of not fair. It's like it was a one-hit wonder, and but there were things about that fight that made it very balanced. There was pillars in the arena. Smile was really slow. Ornstein was really fast. And that was another one, I guess. I mean, you go from a 2 health bar, you get one of them down, then you get another full health bar. Like that one, I mean, that was the epitome of really brutal on the player. But every game wants to be Ornstein smile, and they can't do it. And I think this game, I think it wasn't really successful for me. I mean, the boss wasn't that hard, but especially if you had your Spectre in to divert aggro, but it was just kind of goofy.
I think you watched this video too, Brendan, but it's from Democracy. It made a really good point on why the Gank...
Friend of the channel, yeah. I'll shout him out. Maybe one day.
Really good point he made about why the Gank battle felt odd in this game was there was no,
there wasn't any
terrain arena. It was just an open space. There's nowhere to hide behind or to separate them. It was just an open space.
Now had the pillars in the arena, in that big arena, so you could get behind them and
the people from Bloodborne, the 3 people from Bloodborne, the Nightmares,
the Shadows of Yharnam.
There was pillars there too. We could hide around them and separate them.
Well, there's one big centerpiece in the arena, and you can just kite them around and you take out one at a time. And
this fight,
that's how
was just a big open area.
Fight with the Brotherhood does.
It did have a little bit,
some little obstacles, and honestly, that's how I beat it. I put Pandemonium, the acid spray, on this little rock, and the big brother would be on one side of it and would be stuck and just standing in acid, and I would wait for him to finish an attack sequence, get 2 hits. Now run around to the other side of the rock, and cheese works sometimes.
Yeah.
By the way, Andy, did you not summon? I feel like you didn't.
No,
I didn't think.
I didn't even know. Okay. You guys were like, "Oh, they had the boss weapon." I was like, "What? That's so cool!"
Yeah, they used the boss weapon for the thing.
Yeah. Like the weapon you would get from killing that boss. That's what they were using. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The first Black Rabbit Brotherhood one, where it was the big brother was chasing you, then the other ones would cycle in. The way I ended up beating it was my first strategy was I'm gonna ignore them all together and just fight the big guy. If you do that, they all 3 show up and you get your ass beat. They were because it's you had to kill them.
It was by his health bar.
Yeah, it was by his health bar. It wasn't by their health bar. It was by his. So they would all 3 show up and then they would.
There's a bit of a balance to it. I got the first one that comes in, and then I did focus from there on the big guy, because then the second 2 that come in are a little bit slower, and it's you're just wasting your time. It felt like to me trying to get the other one, so I was like, I let my Spectre take. That's the benefit there of the summon, and then I would go for the way
I beat them was the first 2 I used my specials on and just focused and killed them, and then when the third one came, I ignored him, was just beating his brother while he's chasing me around. That's how I ended up beating him. But those fights, I don't know. I didn't feel like that was still early enough in the game where I wasn't loving the dodge. I still didn't feel confident dodging attacks at that point. So I felt like when there was too much going on, I just couldn't handle it very well. And y'all know me, I don't know how to use L1 at all. I didn't block a single attack in the entire game.
So does his weapon break if you don't do that?
I don't know if the big guy's weapon breaks. It may break because
I broke it in the course of the fight, and that's a huge plot point later on. His weapon is broken when the big sword. His weapon is broken, or maybe you have to break it for it to be broken for the second fight. But
I don't think it was broken in the second fight for me.
Mine wasn't broken.
Oh, see, mine was, because I broke it in the first fight. Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah, I never blocked a single attack the entire game. The whole there's a mechanic of getting your health back with block. I don't know how that works.
That was just a guard, and then it was like Bloodborne, where it still took damage from you, but if you guarded, you would have a chance to go back and get health as long as you weren't getting hit again.
Gotcha.
Same thing with Bloodborne, except Bloodborne you didn't have to guard; you just got hit.
Yeah, that's why I knew how it worked in Bloodborne, because I didn't have to guard.
Yeah.
say
exactly.
I was maybe waiting for a later segment to say this, but since it's coming up now, that is the mechanic of this game that I actually hated the most, even more than the bosses having second phases. So what happens?
You mean guarding in general, or the perfect deflect too?
The way that they did the not perfect guarding, I think, was the wrong way to do it. Perfect guard makes total sense. It's like Sekiro. If you time it right, you do stagger to them, you don't take any damage. I mean, that's
stamina.
The way that right. But I mean, that's Sekiro too, right? It took stamina to do it, so they have to punish you a little bit. What I did not like is that if you imperfect guard, you take damage and you have a recoverable window to get it. I felt like you just needed to take stamina damage, and then once they break your guard, that's when they start doing real damage to you. And if you want to do the regain health thing, do it like Bloodborne did. Do it for all health and make it to where, you can only regain
when you take damage. I think that was actually an ability you can unlock where it's just if you take damage, it will do guard regain. Like, you'll have that.
I think you might be right, actually, yeah.
I think that was. I agree with you. That should have been something that was just like, go into it. Go into it fully. And I just like you brought up kind of an aside, I kind of want to bring this up it sets the tone for me for my whole feelings about the game. When you talk about like the comparisons to Bloodborne, to Sekiro, this game to me had a little bit of an identity crisis. I felt like it didn't know exactly what it wanted to be, or it wanted to be everything, and it didn't do anything particularly well. It had some good moments when it tried to do something completely new, when it tried to mimic Sekiro or Bloodborne or Dark Souls. I mean, the whole thing was mimicking Dark Souls, but Bloodborne and Sekiro had two of those mechanics, like the prosthetic arm and the deflecting, and then Bloodborne with the guard regain. It just didn't do those particularly well, and that frustrated me, because then I wanted it to be something that it couldn't, because I'm a sucker for like deflecting in games. I love the timing of it. I like the ability to stagger and stuff like that. It really makes me feel powerful. Sekiro, I think it has one of the best combat systems in any game ever, and I will die on that hill. It's one of my favorite games ever. And
I mean, you never played Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, so you wouldn't know a good combat system.
Get that out of my face, man. The fact that it couldn't, I really wanted to do the deflecting. Since it was an option, I wanted to do it. It wasn't really viable, or it didn't feel very viable to me. It felt like it was too tight of a window. Like, it was very difficult to pull off. And when you did, you felt good. But then sometimes you would get like a perfect guard off in a flurry of attacks, and like unless you perfect guarded every single one, like you didn't, like it was, you still took damage, whatever. So it's like either take that out or make it more viable or whatever. But I think that again, that captures my whole feeling about the game. It ended up being something that I knew it could, or I wanted to be something it couldn't be, and it's
you brought up the
kind
flurries.
of fell short a little bit.
I kind of mentioned it a second ago. Also, sometimes those flurries, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Like some bosses, the King Puppet, for example, he had basically Melania's waterfowl dance, whatever it's called, at one point. He just starts swinging and swinging and like 7 times. I'm like, am I supposed to dodge these or deflect?
Just perfect guard of every single one.
What am I supposed to do here? I'm rolling back, dodging them until I run out of stamina, and then he hits me the last few. It's just like,
what you're supposed to do during that attack, right? Is that the one where he like wraps around you and pulls in like near the end of it? Right?
No, he like literally would like he'd like literally swing and then like spin and swing and spin and swing and just keep doing it like 7 times.
Attacks. I actually don't think I saw it, but Zach told me about it, and I was like, I can't remember exactly.
It was literally the waterfowl dance from Melania.
Huh.
From her, right there.
Yeah, from her.
I don't remember that move particularly. This was when he was in Robo Mech mode.
In the second phase, about halfway through his second phase, he like lights his sword on fire. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He lights his sword on fire, and then he just goes after you. And I got good enough to dodge, the first 3 or 4 of them, but then I'd run out of stamina, and then he would just hit me the last couple. And I just had to I had to go into the second phase, the second half of the second phase with full health, knowing I wouldn't be able to dodge the full attack. That's how
that's crazy to have to plan for that.
That's what I'm saying.
I did find a way to dodge it. There was a way to fully dodge it perfectly and not get hit.
Just like there is this waterfowl dance from Melania.
Yeah,
that doesn't make me feel better about it.
It was very finicky, and I could not do it 100% of the time.
Like I said, maybe you're supposed to deflect that. I didn't touch the L1 button, so I don't know if I could deflect that.
Supposed to, again, when they push you to do something specific around a mechanic that they have mimicked from another game, and they don't do the mechanic very well, is very frustrating.
Yeah.
So
as we said, right, the punishment for not doing the guard perfectly was way too high for you to risk that, especially on a boss like that where you just spent a whole health bar fighting a guy, and then now you're like whittling away at the other one, so you're 75% of the way through a long fight, and it's like, here, learn the timing of this rhythm game we're going to
it's not even like from the jump it wants you to use it, so every time you try the fight you're getting better at it. It's like you have to wait 75% of the fight, and then okay, now I have to bring back this skill that 10 minutes ago I was okay at, but now I've lost it because I got used to this other moveset. So it was the balancing was off with stuff like that.
And like we talked about the second phase fatigue. I think like the last what 5, 6, 7 bosses all had second phases, and I think the last 3 I think so. I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with of the last 3 bosses. So there was Lexaxia, the complete. There was Manus, the god, complete god, or his name was. And then there was the
arm of God.
The nameless puppet. The first 2 I really didn't have a whole lot of trouble with. Lexaxia did scare me when she went Thor mode and like pulled lightning out of the sky. She scared the crap out of me. But her moveset looked like it could have been tough to deal with. I eked out a win on her pretty quick.
That's the thing. Her moveset was very wide, and another shout out to Democracy. He pointed out like she had such a wide pool of moves to choose from that you could have a run that felt really good, and you could have a run that felt like just straight up bullcrap because of RNG. And it's like, oh, she decided to be in the sky throwing lightning bolts at me for 5 minutes. It's like, well, I can't hit her, and I'm also running out of stamina to dodge.
Guard the lightning bolts, they shoot back at her.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, just like Sekiro. That's kind of cool, actually.
Perfect, the lightning,
but they don't do that mechanic well. So, Lexaxia and both Simon, both of those fights, fortunately, I only took me like 2 tries. And, caveat this, and I think Zach, you're the same. I always summoned when I could because I just had no patience for it. It just felt more satisfying to me that way. And because they kept making it available to me, and there was no way to do multiplayer, I was like, sometimes it felt like they balanced it for that. When a boss is hyper aggressive, it's like you need something to take you away from it. So like, I don't like when they balance things around to summon because I feel like it should be balanced for just you. But like, whatever.
Andrew, I was telling Brendan when you got eliminated by the power. Both Lexaxia and Simon, I got them on my second try. The first try for both of those fights, I tied them, and the tie goes to them. I knocked their whole health bar out to 0, and you just lose. It's just like, screw you, try again.
Oh my gosh, my mind is blown. Wow.
Yeah. It was not,
and I was talking about it, like, usually for these big fights, there would be like a little cutscene or something after you killed them, or like some dialogue, and then they die, and then you'd get the splash screen that said eliminated. If you remember from like FromSoft games, you're waiting to see the timing before, like, is the enemy slain thing going to go up first, or is you died going to go up first? Is that what the other one went up first? You're like, yes, I got it.
They basically hard-coded. They basically hard-coded Liza P. Like, you will not win a tie. We're going to make you like sit
until
here.
Like it was completely calm and then eliminated. And it, like, gave you reward and stuff.
Yeah. So that was frustrating.
Wow.
I did like that when you lost a boss fight, they put your souls outside the door.
That was nice.
One thing I hate about FromSoft games is being greedy and like going into a boss, like running to the souls. Like I got to get those.
Or it's like you have to make a decision about like, do I want to spend these souls first, or do I want to potentially just lose them?
Yeah.
Or you have to get through the fight with them. You have to go get them back or whatever. But like maybe you go into a Liza P boss with like a lot of souls or
just
whatever.
Go back,
currency. What's the currency? Ergo.
Ergo.
And then you're like, okay, maybe I should go spend these first. I thought that was kind of nice.
Speaking of spending Ergo, while we're trashing on the game, why did they give me the ability? Why did I start the game with the ability to level up anywhere, and then they took that away for 85% of the game, and then like, you can have it back. You can do it again.
I don't know. I really don't.
It made no sense.
The only thing I can think of is that they wanted you to go back to the hub area continuously. As if I wouldn't. I would have done that.
And the hub area was great.
You have other NPCs there.
I love the hotel.
You upgrade your character with the ability thing with the P organ, your heart or whatever, and then you upgrade your weapon. And there was NPCs, there was merchants and stuff. There was reasons to go back there, but they didn't need to gatekeep my leveling.
There was compelling conversations with the NPCs. I liked the story. I wanted to go back there and level up my weapon. All that stuff. That's great. But I don't understand why they gave me a quality of life feature, and they're like, no. And then
I can tell you why lore wise,
Sure, I don't care.
They did it.
That's their choice.
And I don't care.
They could have made the lore. They could have made the lore. You can level up anywhere because I've given you my ability to do so. They could have made that the lore.
They tied the leveling up to a specific NPC at the beginning of the game. She's like, "Ooh, I'll put my power in this bonfire." The Stargazer is what they're called.
What? Yeah.
Briefly, and then you find her, you meet her, and it's like, "Oh, I'm the one who's doing this. I level you up." And then at the end of the game, she becomes like unavailable for reasons, and so then it's like, okay, here's the ability to level up.
That was their decision.
You didn't have to do that.
They made the lore. That's their choice to make the lore like that.
This is okay where the lore and the gameplay that is convenient for the player need to cross and just make it better for me, please.
Yeah.
Like that is what I needed there.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, tangent over, but that pissed me off.
Yeah. Irrelevant tangent.
We kind of talked about the hotel. I really liked the hotel.
Cool.
One thing I want to shout out with the hotel, the music tracks, the records you get. I legitimately liked some of those songs. I would sit there and listen to the songs and
The idea is that you sit there and you can't talk to anybody while they're playing, and then you get it builds your humanity or whatever right after the song plays. But it's the songs were good enough where I was like, okay, I'll put the controller down, play on my phone while I'm listening to this music. It was nice. I thought
you become more human, which has some story implication. You become more human by listening to music, and also for lying to people. That was a cool mechanic. There were some options where you get to choose to tell someone the truth or lie. I pretty much always lied. Sometimes
it was
a human thing to do.
Save their feelings, right? It was
exactly.
To make them feel better about the situation.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
The one where the guy he's like, can you go find my wife? And you go find his wife, and it's a puppet. And he's like, is it weird my wife's a puppet? And you're like, nah, man, that's cool. That was cool. That was awesome.
But the thing is, you find out things about the puppets and the ergo that lives within them. They kind of gain sentience.
Yeah.
And so, it's a thing made of metal and stuff. But your other NPCs you meet that realize real. This is kind of strange, but real connections can be built between puppet and human. So while yes, on the surface that is weird, you get that side of the story and the lore that's he actually built a relationship with this puppet.
That was so funny. The opening merchant who's been in the hotel the whole game. You go find him, and he's standing in the rain like this, waiting for you to come talk to him, and he's just like, I love my master. Is that weird? And you're like, nah, man.
No.
You can.
And sometimes
love
they're
her.
Horrible.
Sometimes the NPCs are like, "Oh, you're so nice for lying to me right now." Dude,
they would acknowledge. Thanks for lying to me.
But that's the whole thing. It was more like you said, Andrew, saving their feelings, and that is the human thing to do. It's a white lie, and we're playing into the Pinocchio thing, because it is a lie at its core. But the point is that you're, becoming a little bit more human, in touch with your humanity.
Did they ever call him Pinocchio a single time?
I think so. No, they didn't even. I don't know if they even called him. By the way. No, they didn't. Yeah,
you're Carlo, which is the author of the folk tale, or whatever.
Which is cool.
It's a cool nod. It's a cool nod.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it is interesting that they didn't give that puppet that Geppetto created an image of his son.
You are Geppetto's puppet, is who you are.
Yes, which is Pinocchio. Yeah. So I guess they just decided maybe that was. I'm gonna say something. It was a little on the nose.
Yeah.
They made that decision, I guess, creatively to be like.
I should just cut the video. Cut the video right when he said that.
Done. On the nose. Click.
Thanks for watching,
everyone. Yeah. We're done. That's it from us.
Speaking of on the nose, I don't know if you got this, Andrew. So obviously you get the painting, and it goes up in Geppetto's study, and it's the picture of Carlo sitting here like this. And as you lie, the nose grows. Did you go there right before the end of the game and get the nose? Yes, you get the nose as a bow staff, basically.
Yes.
I didn't. I just didn't go back and visit it. I didn't. I think
you could probably still do that.
Well, funny. Another tangent here. This game is uninstalled off my console now, so I'm not going back to it anytime soon.
Yeah.
You said I'm done.
Well, yeah. You get the. What is it called? The weapon, I can't remember what it's called. It's something like art, something of lying,
something
the
of gold,
liar's truth, or something. I don't remember what it's called. The golden lie. The golden lie. It's the golden lie.
That's it.
It's just your Pinocchio's long nose as a bow staff, which I thought was cool because
funny. And it's not super impressive damage-wise or scaling or anything, but it like has a cool special move.
Yeah, you
So,
can
like,
block if your special move blocks while
Two
attacking.
special moves that both cost favorable.
Yeah, and that is what that 2 Dragon Sword did, except for just a charge R2 while you're doing it, it's blocking. Like it's pretty cool.
The only other they didn't really do a whole lot with the Pinocchio's nose for most of the game, but I do want to give a shout out to the loading screens where it said "now lying" and the nose would grow across the screen. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like fun little nods like that. This game had a lot of like heart and a lot of charm.
Yeah, it did.
And
it did.
It was like it was close, but there's some things it just missed out on.
Right.
I know there's a few more mechanics. I know you want to mention, Brendan. Any other mechanics that like just kind of felt like you wanted to like this didn't quite.
One that felt either a little bit forced or just underbaked, like it needed to just be a different form. And we mentioned the golden tree, and it ties into this. So there was this cube. I think it's just called the cube.
Oh yeah, the cube. Yeah.
And you could equip a wish stone, which is a consumable item that had a specific effect when you used it.
Yep.
And if anyone's played Elden Ring, what it felt like to me was that it was trying to be something like the Flask of Wondrous Physic. It's like a one-time use thing that at first I thought you would equip a thing to it. It would spawn if you if you died, if you went to a Stargazer and like rested or whatever. I thought it would just like refill it. No, you have to go buy those items, and each one is consumed, and it's a currency that you get from this tree thing, and you go to a different merchant to just buy them, and the currency you get from the tree is on a timer like a mobile game. And I was like, I don't understand this. And like,
I was like, hard to play that right now.
It was a little weird,
like
weirdly forced with that. Yeah.
So if you take out the consumable nature of what you can equip to the cube, it was a little bit slow to like cast or whatever, and you could fix that with an ability, but I think they should have just timed it a little bit better. But just allow me to find the things like you could in Elden Ring with the different tiers that you can equip to the flask. Let me find them, make a tied to a hard enemy in a really secluded area. Just let me keep them, like, because otherwise it's literally artificial. Like, there's no skill tied to it. I'm just waiting for the currency to come to me. I didn't do anything for the currency.
I stopped using them because I thought it was tedious to go talk to the guy every once in a while.
Yeah, I would do it still because I would just find myself like, oh, it has 8 coins filled up and ready to go. It had a cap on it. 8. I think you could upgrade it to be like 10.
You could also upgrade the speed in which it grows. Like, why would I do that? Why would I spend my skills on that?
That was a very odd choice because that was very touching close to like they could have made that microtransactions, and that would have been really bad. So they didn't, but they did just take it out. Just take it out.
What if instead of this tree, what if there's a whole farm sim, the whole hotel, you could go plant your crops in like a whole.
It would have been really weird.
Yeah, it would have been really weird. But yeah, the tree was weird. The tree like had like lore behind it, and you got to and like, whoa, the tree that I've been looking for. Blah blah. It's like, this is now going to be a timer in which you can buy certain mechanics from this weird, creepy guy who's like a 3-minute walk from your spawn. Is like just kind of out of the way and weird.
Yeah, it was very strange, and it's
clearly the NPC that you would never have told where Hotel Crot was, and yet also the NPC that they forced to like be right next to it. You're like,
he wasn't allowed in though.
Slaughter everybody in the hotel. It's gonna be this guy. Yeah. I'm not telling him anything, and he camps out right outside of it. Against your will completely.
Yeah, there's other dialogue you get, like, so he's of the alchemist. He's in the alchemist group, which doesn't mean anything to anybody who hasn't played, but like, he's real creepy. You're warned about this group of people. It's like the main antagonist of the game. You're told like, don't trust these people, and then he's like against your will next to your home base. He's like, I don't like this. I did think it was kind of neat when you found him right next to the tree. It was after I don't remember. It was after that first Gank fight, right? And then you go up the elevator and stuff, and then it's like, oh, I'm in the hotel.
That was a cool reveal.
By far the most. That was the most satisfying, like, wraparound, like, shortcut thing that they did. It wasn't a shortcut, but it was like tying the level design together. Yep. If you guys don't mind, I kind of want to touch on that aspect of level design. So that was a success when it comes to like the way they designed the world and it tying back on itself. That was cool. I was not a huge fan of the way they built in the shortcuts in the levels. They were needed, yes, but it was like you start the level and you're like, that's a shortcut. That right there, that's a shortcut. And it's like, I can't wait to go through some bull crap to get that, and then I just earned the ability to never do that stuff I didn't like again. Like,
yeah, the shortcuts were pretty on the nose. You could see them coming.
They were.
Yeah, I mean, like, I thought for the most part the level design itself was like pretty good. Like, it felt like I kind of felt like Miyazaki would kind of like at least glance at this once, you know, almost like he know, like it kind of like levels. Levels kind of felt like that FromSoft level design. Like enemies would jump up from behind corners sometimes. Like I was like, oh, God, I saw that coming, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, then they would hide stuff behind like the annoying mini bosses, and you're like, okay, I know I gotta go get whatever's behind this guy. And always the shortcut.
And it like inevitably that thing's gonna have like quartz was the thing you could use to upgrade your abilities. It's like I want that. I really want that. So, but some of those enemies, man, some of those mini bosses were. They just tough. Sometimes I thought some of the mini bosses had like a lot, like way too much health. Yeah, it was weird.
You had to hit them like 15 times with like charged R2s.
15 is generous. I think it was. Yeah, you charged R2s.
Yeah, you had to really smack them.
They were stocky. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I thought
you just mentioned something. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
I was going to say, overall, I thought the enemy diversity, I thought as far as bosses and like sub-bosses, mini-bosses, that was pretty good. The base enemies got a little repetitive. Like the regular Joe Schmoes, those were, you're cycling those like the same ones as the zombies, the regular puppets. But I thought like the tougher enemies that were like sprinkled in at like, if they were more fun to fight, I thought they were sprinkled in at a good rate. Like when they showed up, I was like, okay, it's about time for me to fight one of these guys. That feels good. And it's just the enemies themselves were a little annoying to deal with. And I liked, for the most part, most of the mini bosses, like design wise and movesets. They had different movesets and stuff. But
and speaking on design and stuff, and it kind of makes me think of aesthetics and just visuals and also performance. I will say the game looked very good, in my opinion. Looked very good. And so it was very effective with world design and like overall like setting. I thought it was great. Repetitive enemies, yes, but the way that things were designed was very good. And I didn't have any performance issues. I think the default, which is always smart, they put it on performance mode, and I certainly didn't touch
shout out to performance. It really did. I felt smooth the whole time. I never felt like I was like losing frames or anything. I felt like the game. I didn't even think about it honestly until you said that. It was solid enough. I didn't even think about it. So, which should be.
You hope that's what a
setting, because there was a PS4 version of the game. I would guess that was more for our friends, our horizontal friends out there. So
but the game, I thought from the pre-release stuff, the game looked so good. I was like, I hope it actually ends up looking this good. Like when I'm playing it, and it did. It was really, really nicely designed.
I think everyone looked good. If you stared too close when they were talking, the mouths were like a little awkward. They'd be like,
FromSoft is guilty of that too.
But you know what they do? They cover their face a lot. They they shroud their face in something.
Put on a helmet. Yeah.
And sometimes with the puppets, it kind of makes sense. Like the House of Vanini. Of course, that guy's going to be awkward. But when you're talking to like Sophia, and she's like talking to you, and her mouth is like just like doing this at like a weird frequency. That kind
normally of like, I guess they just animate the open and close, and then the game's in all kinds of different languages, like so they don't put in that level of effort to like make it sync up with voice and like actually I mean it's a lot of games do that. It's not excusable, but you hope one day like there'll be assets out there for developers who are making games just like free to use, like put in this mouth motion asset, it'll be good to go. So maybe one day. I know I'm talking a lot. I just wanted to, before I forget, you mentioned like level design and like around the corner this enemy's going to jump out. Did it feel to you guys like the game relied a lot on like ambush encounters, like things were jumping out constantly at you, and it's like you kind of expected it, but sometimes there were a couple levels where like, okay, there's nothing here, I'm good, I'm gonna go over here, and then smack. I was like, I didn't even hear you, I didn't see you, I scoped out the area, and then you come crawling up the wall. Like I felt like, it's a nitpick, but I felt like there was a lot of ambush. Like,
I thought that was funny when you talk with them crawling up the wall. I loved areas where you could see them hanging on the side, and you're like, I'm going to show up and you're going to crawl. I know you're there. That was pretty funny.
It's like, why put it there when I can see it way ahead of time? Just make them stand there like every other encounter. That was funny.
I think you're right, and I think they had more than one area where it was an ambush encounter, and then they would throw all those butterflies down for you to get weapon upgrades at the same time.
Like
You're
that.
like, okay.
Oh, those two,
right,
yeah. The
so
butterfly would happen, and you'd be like, I know I'm going to chase it, and there's going to be some dude there at the end, like, and every time it happened.
You want to get into the mind of the developer there, because it's like, I only have so much time to kill this butterfly, which in the patch, again, a reference to the patch that they put out, they reduced the health of those butterfly enemies or like things, which were like the little lizards in Dark Souls that give you upgrade materials. But it's like, what was the point? Because you put a really hard enemy at the end of this tunnel that I'm chasing this butterfly down. I have to now fight that thing or it's going to kill me. So like, what was the idea there? They did it like every time.
Every time the butterfly led you to an enemy, like waiting, like that was.
Yeah, and it was normally like some like hard big brute about to smack you. So yeah. Goofy.
And I think that maybe what we can kind of sum this idea up is that moves like that and similar ones throughout the game, it just lacked a little bit of subtlety that Dark Souls has, where Dark Souls relies on the threat of an enemy ambushing you to kind of put you in that mode, but it doesn't always capitalize on it. Plenty of times you have a lizard, you chase it, you kill it, it books it away from you to the point where you're like, oh crap, like who's gonna come smack me, and nothing happens.
Nothing. Yeah.
Three times out of 5, it's that. 2 times out of 5, somebody comes and punches you off a cliff. And so mixing the two together,
they did go for it every time,
right?
I had a moment.
Expected thing doesn't happen. That adds, you know what I mean? So,
Dude, I had a moment. It made me so mad. It was towards the end. It was right before you get to the Simon Manus fight. You encounter those, I guess, like almost one-time enemies just in that area. They look like like jungle explorers. They have Indiana Jones looking dudes. And they have like some
with
of them
the
have
mustache,
like rapiers.
with the mustache.
And they had like the curled up mustache. It looked like something out of a Disney movie. There was a point where I was like, I went across a bridge and there's like a side path and I could see there was like an item over there and there was some crates like blocking part of it, and I killed the guy. 2 guys came down. I killed them. Okay, I'm gonna go get that item. Oh my gosh! Poke through the crates off the ledge. I got so mad. I was like, there's no need for that. There's no need to do that. Like, you didn't have to mess with me like that. And then I could see coming back, like, okay, you can kind of see him if I was looking directly at that. But yeah, the ambush reliance on their part, I was like, it got predictable, but then sometimes they would get me. They would absolutely get me, and it was not. I was not happy.
The one I thought was
because they relied on doing it every time, right?
Yeah.
So
the one like, as a player, like they can't possibly do it every time, right? And no, they would.
The one in the basement of the arcade. You walk in there and you see the monsters behind the fences, and like you go up there and you can't open it, you can't hit them. You're like, what's going on? You're like, what's going to jump out? And you see like these boxes, and this man standing there like.
He's like, like a SpongeBob.
And you're like,
he's like,
I'm gonna walk close, and he jumps out and attacks you. Like, okay, I knew you were there, and then he does this weird like run at you, but
gosh, that was one of the more annoying mini boss guys.
That guy gave me some trouble.
Yeah, that one was hard. That one I had it. To me, it felt like if I don't deflect this thing, I'm gonna lose my mind. So eventually, you get into the repetitive motion of him attacking. You end up breaking both of his weapons if you deflect them enough, and then the zombies jump out. And it helps you because it kind of draws aggro, so that it ended up being fine. But like, the goofy ambushes, man.
They couldn't
the
help
way
themselves.
I fought him was pretty bad. I like kited him back onto the stairs until he was right at the cusp of like he would chase you out
his
and
tether.
go back in, chase you out and go back in. I got to the point where I had no more heals. He was at a pinch of health. I was at a pinch of health.
Oh boy.
I was like, dude, I really don't want to do this again. So I let him like walk back, and then I didn't see because I was on these stairs, but the zombies just killed him for me.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
They were completely full health. They had been freed, and they just swarmed him and killed him. I was like, thanks, guys.
Dude, that's awesome. There you go.
On more than one occasion, I killed one of those tough side enemies by getting them to their tether, letting them walk back, hit them in the butt, running back, they tether, hit him. I just do that. Like, I'm going to do it. If you're going to let me do it, I'm going to do it. I don't care.
That to me, I mean, I don't want to be overly critical, but to me, if that is, and I know there's other ways to do it. You can get good. That's the toxic Souls community things to say, whatever. But if that is what the player feels like they have to resort to that feels like bad design. Over aggressive enemies, which From Software games are not innocent of this, especially Elden Ring with all its goodness. I feel like they really stepped up some of the aggressiveness of enemies. I feel like just scale it back. And you have these people who are like really gluttons for punishment. They just like put out this message like, we need more. We need it harder. It's
I have this thing in my head like I want to if I dodge attack or block attack, I want my turn to hit them. I don't like when my reward for dodging their attack is, oh, now you can dodge their next attack.
They just keep hitting.
Yeah, it's like I want to dodge and I want to get my hit. I don't want to dodge and then just...
That is the formula that these games were built on, is that you learn that enemy's attacks and you are rewarded for it. Yeah. So whether that's shield blocking, deflecting, or dodging, you learned it. But if you don't stop the combo, then I didn't learn it, so because I can't.
The King of Puppets, one of his like attack like combos, I guess, he would like do a big slam, and when in every one of these games, big slam, I dodge, that should be free hit, right? No, so big slam, and then my R1 was slower than his second quick attack. So like he would go big slam, I'd enter my attack animation, and I'm like halfway through it, and he just slaps me in the face.
Yeah,
and it's like
that's probably bad on two accounts, because they didn't time the boss animations right to let the player get in there and feel successful for their learning of the moveset. And then a lot of the weapons were really, really slow. A lot of them were really slow, and this game felt like you just needed to be faster. I didn't like how slow weapons felt. I tried some of them, and I had like in my brain, I had a cadence of movement that I wanted to meet, so I like sought that out, and until I got it, like it didn't feel quite right.
Yeah, my skill tree, I went for everything that made me roll better or move faster.
Absolutely.
I did that every time.
Yeah.
Was my
There's something funny I wanted to say about the King of Puppets. That boss took me only 2 or 3 tries, and I figured out on like the first or second try that I could cheese the first phase. And I got through the second phase with the help of my Spectre and stuff, so like I didn't experience a lot of the difficult things that you guys may have mentioned. But like, I just want to mention how I cheesed the first phase. So he's this big robot guy. You walk in and he immediately comes at you, and there's like a smaller doorway, one that's just barely bigger than him, and you could get him in that doorway, and I just stood under his crotch and whacked him, and most of the time he was aggro to my Spectre, and I just kept whacking him, and he would do like big attacks, and it wouldn't hit me because I'm under his crotch, I'm under his robo crotch, and it just so I got through that phase like that, and then I had plenty of healing, and my Spectre was like full health for the second phase, and I just like got through it. So that one I felt like I cheesed, and I don't feel guilty about it at all.
You shouldn't feel guilty.
It was tough. It was tough.
It was a hard fight for sure. So. So that was the Archbishop for me, man. That was
last one thing I want to mention on the just a cool subtlety on some of the bosses. It was very apparent on the King of Puppets, they fought him a lot, and in some other areas, you would hear dialogue and like the bottom, the subtitle would be all scrambled, and the voice would be scrambled as you became like more. It was actually kind of backwards to me. You became more human, like as you became more human, the dialogue would like unscramble.
I wonder if that was just with each successive fight, and
it might have been the story,
which direction you were going. Yeah,
but it was like you could see more of the subtitles. The actual word was easier to read, and their voice was less scrambled. I thought that was a cool little nod. I didn't really get it because in my head, if I'm hearing the puppets, being more of a puppet would make me hear them better. But like as I'm like progressing, becoming more human, I don't know, whatever. I just thought that was a.
Were there any late game puppet bosses though? Like.
No, it was basically it basically ended at the King of Puppets. That was the last time I really noticed it.
I'm story-wise, it makes sense to go into New Game Plus and see what happens with those bosses. Are we going to be able to hear? Because
it's like
voice actor. Like all these bosses have voice actors.
What's the thing from
Bloodborne? Mentioned that. I think he played multiple playthroughs, and he said that stuff is a payoff in New Game Plus. So
it's like Bloodborne with the insight, seeing the Demogorgons, whatever they're called, the
amygdalas.
The amygdalas, yeah. You can like see them when you have enough insight. That's kind of what they were going for here, which it was cool. But they did kind of stop utilizing it like halfway through the game, which that was weird.
Right.
But unless y'all have any other like quirks you want to talk about, I guess the last thing I was want to talk about was the post-credit scene of the game. They're kind of hinting at where they're going to go from here. The weird creepy guy who's at the hotel. For some reason, he's talking.
I don't remember his name.
I don't either. He's talking to somebody or something. I don't remember what's going on. Didn't listen to that. But then something walks across the screen, and it's these red shoes, and they click together, and it's like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. which kind of like clicked in my head, like they're just gonna keep doing these public domain like folklore fables, whatever. Yeah. And I think that's a cool idea. I think they could make some real fucked up shit with Wizard of Oz. If they were to I'm just picturing like I think I told you, Brandon, the idea of like imagine you fighting like the Tin Man, and he's the goofy Tin Man, and he like the second phase like rips the lion's heart out and like shoves it in his own chest and like becomes like second phase Tin Man.
Yep.
So yeah, the idea of like playing a Wizard of Oz Souls-like sounds kind of cool. I guess you'd play as Dorothy. I would like it if they make it a little bit quicker of a game. Maybe give some like cool magic options. That'd be cool.
By quicker, you mean like the movement of your
character and overall. Okay, yeah. And I would like to see like I kind of missed like the that's why I used the gun arm in this game. So I want some magic options. I would like to see that in a follow up. But I guess I wanted to ask y'all, what would be another funny public domain IP you would like to see them like play around with?
Just because I took a look at the list the other day, or a list that probably wasn't all encompassing, but and this is mostly a joke answer, but like Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain.
Yeah.
So like,
that's what I thought of just now. That would be great.
Yeah, it would be probably terrifying, like that crazy movie.
The last boss is like Pooh of the 100-Acre Wood. He's like this like bear on all fours, you know, like.
Well, the picture I have in my head is of that horror movie that looks like a comedy to me, but like I guess they were going for horror. That came out last year or whenever. But it could do some messed up stuff with these like traditionally children's stories, which I don't know if these are like the whatever those fairy tales are called that like Disney uses, but they really have like that very like dark actual stories. I don't know if these fables have that same kind of origin or if they are just like what they are and then they're putting their twist on them. But either way, like Wizard of Oz is one.
Alice in Wonderland.
What they're going to do next. Alice in Wonderland. That was the other good one that I saw. That I think could be very cool because there's already a diverse set of characters and potential enemies and stuff in that world to pull from. Pinocchio, I mean, maybe I just didn't watch whatever Disney movie was put out 50 years ago. I don't remember that whole story. I'm not super familiar with the Pinocchio story other than like the major story beats, but like I don't know how much they actually had to pull from, and I'm sure they took lots of creative liberties here because I feel like it was just your base. Like
next stream, I'm going to do a Pinocchio watch along, Zach. Next live stream, let's do a Pinocchio watch along.
There we go. And then compare and contrast to the
Brandon,
story of
you just
Liza
reminded
P.
me of something that like I just forgot to address this whole time. In like 10 seconds or less, can you all describe the significance of Gemini or Jiminy Cricket? What was he in the game, in the lore? What like
he was just your little buddy giving you filler narration because.
But what was he? What was he?
I think he was probably something akin to a puppet, but concealed in like a thing, and he had some level of sentience.
He was a lamp.
He was damaged at the beginning. He was a lamp, yes, but he was not. He was something like a puppet, like an AI type of thing, like powered by Ergo, probably. And if we didn't say that, that's what gave these puppets their life.
Tinfoil hat here, tinfoil hat. I read into the memories when you're walking up the beach to the Akos. I read into that way more than that, and I got something completely different on what I think Jiminy is. I think Jiminy was a person or a puppet, but I think probably a person, and I think that his Ergo is inside of the lamp, and I think that he is the person who killed Carlo also. Because it was unclear how he died to me. There's a memory where the stalker, the Carlo and Romeo are like pestering this stalker woman, like, teach us how to fight, like we want to be stalkers. And at the end of one of the memories, she says, like, you know, get him off me, Jiminy, or like, you know, get him away from here, Jiminy. And then the next
she says Jiminy?
Yes. And then the next one is like a kid's dead body, and the stalker is like over it, like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, so
you're saying Geppetto definitely went and killed that other kid and then turned him into a cricket and shoved him into a lamp and was cursed to light the path
killed
of
Carlo. Also was killed probably by Geppetto.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Did it bother you that it was spelled Gemini? Like they're going for the star thing, the stargazer.
I think that was kind of cool. I think that was kind of cool twist.
if let's say it was a book and that's what I was reading about this, I would have
never
read
said
it
Gemini. I would have never said
Gemini. Absolutely. So that when I think it's a cool idea and it ties into the star or whatever theme that they're going for, but it was like that's not how you pronounce that word.
Also, the whole game, the Firekeeper, she's Sophia, and then at the very end of the game, Gemini's like, "It's Sophia." It's like, whoa, don't say it like that. Don't say it. Stop that.
Yeah. I don't know if any other characters do.
In the scene after you kill Simon says it that way.
Yeah. I don't know how many characters said her name before, other than her. I feel like she said it as Sophia.
Yeah, I think she says it as Sophia.
Yeah. So I don't know if you hear anyone else say it until the end, and it's like Sophia. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, it's like, don't say
it's like damage.
Yeah, that's goofy.
Yeah, overall, I think the game was. I did genuinely really like it. I think if I had never played a Dark Souls game and I didn't have all this stuff to like reference and critique based off of like how it's been done better, I may be more forgiving. But just knowing the stuff that FromSoft has figured out with this genre, some of that stuff just did bother me a little bit more. But overall,
that's why it is odd, because it was very clear inspiration after this catalog of games that FromSoftware has released. So it's like, okay, fine. If you want to be inspired by it, take influence or do little mechanics in your own spins on them. But take the good stuff. Take the quality of life things. Take the balancing out. Like do that, and then do your own things on top of that. But that's hopefully the next time, because I'm sure this game is going to do reasonably well, especially for a smaller studio. And they tease what the next thing is going to be. Yeah,
Wizards of Oz.
Wizards of Oz. Yeah, it's got to be some weird spin on the
Wizard
name.
of O.
Wizard of O. Yeah, they're not going to say it.
Wizard of O.
I was going to ask, so this game's called Lies of P. P being Pinocchio, sure, and lies being because Pinocchio lies. The title was very Pinocchio. If this is a connected series of games, what is the next one?
Tornado of D.
That's the thing. Do they make it goofy and like the same blah of blah, or do they have a subtitle thing like a
Lies of P Universe, Dorothy Strikes Back, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And then that begs the question: is your main character, who is P, Pinocchio, Carlo, whatever, is he going to be in the next games? Or are you going to play as Dorothy, some other thing? These are all questions we can't answer. But I'm just curious, where they go with that.
I would like to I know they introduced Dorothy was in Crot. Get rid of that. Yeah. Just make it Dorothy in Wizard of Oz land. I don't want her.
Yeah, they do. I hope they don't need to make Crot this made up place the hub for every game. Go somewhere else.
Maybe she starts in Crot and she gets tornadoed into Wizard of Oz land.
I guess if they're treating that city as from the public domain fables that they're using, that standpoint, this is the fantasy hub for this stuff to happen, but then it kind of branches off in other places. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I want the Wizard of Oz game to take place. I want to walk down the yellow brick road and fight like a magician at the end.
Sure. I'm sure we'll get to do that in 6 years, however long. PS6. Yeah.
Is the final boss? Yeah, the final boss is the magician, and the first phase you're fighting the man in front of the curtain, and then the second phase you're fighting the man behind the curtain.
You know what I will say? That's very literal. And I guess the last boss was Geppetto if you did that optional ending, which, spoiler, I didn't end up having enough patience to fight that boss because I was done with the game. So I tried, and then I took the easy way out. Anyways, the last boss that I would consider was the satisfying end for me was not what I know to be anything related to the Pinocchio story. So, they could go really off the walls. With,
the Hand of God, Simon Manus, is not from the Pinocchios.
Yeah, it's not ringing any bells.
So, but there is, that character of Simon is based on a character that's in Pinocchio.
So this is... I didn't know this.
Is he the Hand of God?
Well, he's not the Hand of God and all that. The whole idea of the alchemists is completely that's left field.
Who is Simon then?
Simon
says. Simon says.
Simon says.
Oh.
Simon owns the circus. No, that's Stromboli. Never mind. Simon
Stromboli.
Is that guy with the top hat. Sorry. I'm just trying to go back through. You forgot about Stromboli? How'd you forget about Stromboli? Simon is the guy that's hey, sell me these kids. I take them to this island. They get turned into donkeys, and I bring them back and sell the donkeys. and he gets the red fox and the black cat to get Pinocchio basically from.
So the red fox and the black cat are also in.
And they go.
This is how unfamiliar I am with that story.
Were you all
they
nice
go
to them?
Pleasure Island, and everything you do that's behaving badly turns you into a donkey. So all the kids are drinking, they're all smoking, they're gambling, and so it's all poison to turn them into donkeys.
Oh, dude, I'm getting an appreciation for the story then, because the alchemists have their island, and he wanted to turn people he wanted to basically give them this disease so then he could harvest the ergo from them. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Props to them. Yeah. Props to them.
So Pinocchio.
Maybe I needed to read up on Pinocchio before.
Ears and a tail, I think, and that's all that he has. That was a donkey. The rest of him is still wood puppet. But yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. Okay, that's a good little bit of insight there.
You should have started with that. You should have given us the entire page one.
But now I'm like, wait a minute, where was Stromboli? We needed it to fight Stromboli.
Stromboli, hand of God. That's the last boss.
I'm just thinking on that one.
He's whipping you. He's got a wet spaghetti noodle, and he whips at you, and then he turns it into a dry spaghetti noodle. It breaks against you. It's he whips wet spaghetti noodle, and he hits you, and it turns to a dry one, and it smacks you.
Wow. I mean, how does he rebuild his broken spaghetti?
He's got a lot of them.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Of course.
I think if you want to be technical, Romeo fits the role of Stromboli because Romeo is in charge of all the puppets, and Stromboli's in charge of all the puppets. So
of course.
I'll put that out there. You guys in the comments tell me if I'm wrong or right, whatever you say. But
I just learned a lot about Pinocchio tonight.
Yeah.
I'm making the pizza.
Cool.
Very good.
Well, this was fun. I liked the game. It was fun talking about it. Fun kind of going over what we. It's good to vent about the things that bothered us with it.
Yeah.
Overall, though,
I think this is and it's in good with love, I guess is what I'll say, because despite the fact that I did have my issues, I may never play the game again. Just put that out there.
Yeah.
Not it's not any super harsh feelings in that sense, but I really appreciate what they did as the first outing, and I'm looking forward to
I hope they make a bunch of money and they can put all that learning and money and funding into the next one and make it even better.
And clearly they're taking some kind of feedback, whether it was from the demo, and I don't know exactly what changes were made from the demo to the release, but they put out a patch a week and a half after the game came out, and it had legitimate, helpful updates and changes.
Yeah.
So that to me that means they're somewhat clued into what people are thinking. And I don't know if people are going to share a lot of our.
They watch some boss ranking videos,
They're going to watch this podcast.
Yeah.
But it is good to see because it's that they're kind of.
They're going to watch it and they're going to go, Jim, you didn't put Stromboli in the game? Where's Stromboli at?
Damn it, Jim.
The side boss.
Good job. I give you a list of characters. I said to check them off as you go. Where's Stromboli?
Stromboli, king of donkeys. He comes riding in on a donkey or something.
There you go. Yeah.
That's Manus. I apologize, but
yeah. Get it right. Dude.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm a big dumb idiot.
You tried.
But,
yeah.
All right, fellas. I appreciate y'all talking with me. It was fun. We'll have to do this again sometime. Not as infrequent as the last time we did this. So.
Yeah.
But.
For sure.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.